Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guitar Souls podcast. This is episode number 97. I've got it right this time, I think. I am one of your hosts, Mr. Levi Clay, and I am here with my good friend, giving the fingers, Mr. Mike McLaughlin. How is it going, buddy?
I am all right, man. How are you?
Tired.
Yeah.
Rare occasion, but Melissa stayed here last night. Lovely night, playing piano, watching films, eating good food. But that motherfucker, man, she does not sleep like a normal person, and I've never experienced this.
Says you.
Yeah, exactly. In any relationship I've ever been in, I'm the weird one, you know? I'm the one that's used to sneaking into bed hours after my partner's already fallen asleep because I've been up working or doing stuff. But not this girl. No. Like, it will get to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm just like, I can't anymore. And I'll just pass out from exhaustion. The type of tiredness where your head hits the pillow and you're asleep within 10 seconds. I'm talking that level of exhaustion. And this motherfucker she's still awake. She just continues on doing things. I don't get it. Sometimes I'll wake up at like 4 in the morning and she'll be sat at the piano writing a song. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? How do you do this? Why are you more weird than I am? So, yeah, she's catching up on a 40 winks in the house, and I'm doing this. So I'm tired. I'll ramble a little bit today, I'm sure.
I'm sure we both will. I think that'll just increase the madness.
Yeah.
Probably the best way to put it. It'll increase the madness.
Yes. Anything happening with you?
Nothing exciting. Just a wee follow-up on my granny. A couple of people reached out. Appreciate the concern. Sorry, I missed the Monday night Guitar Geek Club, but my poor wee granny's very unwell. At the time of this broadcasting, she will have already been moved into a hospice. She's been confirmed to have cancer in her bones, her liver and her kidneys, as far as I've been told.
Yeah.
So things aren't good for wee Mags. I just want her to be comfortable. But thanks very much for people who have shown any concern. Anybody that's even not reached out or just kind of had a silent thought or prayer for us, whether you pray or not, still a nice thought. So thanks to anybody that's cared whatsoever. Here's hoping wee Mags is all right.
Yeah, it's one of those awful things to have to talk about, isn't it? Like, very sorry for that.
That's all right, man. It's the nature of life, isn't
Yeah.
it? Everybody has a time, and unfortunately for my gran, she already has Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And bad memory issues. So she's really totally short memory deficient. She'll ask you the same question multiple times.
Sure.
She's comfortable in the hospital, which is good, and I think she'll be really comfortable in the hospice because it'll have 24-hour proper care. But I'm a wee bit concerned for her because she doesn't really know anybody there, obviously, and she only really knows her own house. She stayed there for, honestly, could be 60 years.
Sure.
So, wee bit concerned. Obviously, we can't visit either when she's in the hospice, but it's not too far away, and we should be able to visit soon. We're allowed to go up and go to the window, which I don't want to do. I think it'll distress her.
Yes.
But she seems comfortable in hospital. She's a lot less pain.
Which is ultimately all you can hope for, right?
That's all I care about.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do anything to help her otherwise. As long as she can be comfortable, that's all that matters.
Oh, that's sad. And to anyone else that's going through sad times, we are going to do our best to pull you through some of that today. With some, we've got some fan mail to talk about. We've got four stories, I think, that we're going to talk about. 4 fan mail things to talk about, and then 4 stories. We'll try not to keep you too long, but of course, if you are watching on the Monday Night Geek Club, please do share this stream. And if you are not watching it live and you are listening after the fact, then as always, please do like, comment, share, subscribe, tell all of your friends, tell all of your enemies, because we could do with reaching more people. That's always very, very helpful. Because reaching new people means that we can tell them new things. We can tell them exciting things. For example, did you know? This show is brought to you by Ormsby Guitars. If you want to see something beautiful, head on over to Ormsby's Instagram page right now and see what they are all about. Ormsby Guitars have been at the cutting edge of guitar design innovation since Perry started the company way back in 2003. Since then, the brand has gone on to be one of the #1 brands associated with Australia and modern guitar design. Aside from having one of the most ridiculous custom shops in the market today and a dedicated team that can essentially build you anything that your heart desires, more recently the brand has gained critical acclaim for their runs of custom order guitars manufactured in Korea, shipped to Australia and then sent out through their distributor network. These guitars include incredible designs such as the Hype and the Goliath. If you head on over to Ormsby's website right now and check out the pre-order section, you can pre-order a Goliath Run 14 guitar now for under $1,200. That's an incredible price and an amazing amount of guitar for your money. So as always, a huge thanks to our friends and family over at Ormsby Guitars. Please do go and check those guys out. In fact, I need to do an updated ad read for that because new things are happening. There are new things on the Ormsby website for you to check out now. You can't actually go and pre-order one of the Goliath or Hype runs of run 13. I keep forgetting which number it is, but yeah, new stuff. Please do go and check it out. They make incredible instruments. We're big fans of everything that they're doing over there. Well worth checking out. Good guys too, and I think that's the most important thing. Is that right, Mike?
Very much so. Very much so. Big thanks to the guys for constantly looking after us and all their fans, really. There isn't really any times I've seen on the Facebook group where it hasn't been Perry or someone else in the team who've jumped on answering it right away. What more can you ask for? Yeah.
Is it not in the last week? It's been nice being able to work with guys like Ormsby because we're going to talk about Dave Mustaine shortly. But I did a Rage Time video, not really a Rage Time, but as soon as that Dave Mustaine announcement went up, I was like, right, I'm making a video. I'm talking about this, and on reflection, I could have probably been a bit cooler, a bit calmer in the video. I'm still okay with it because videos like that, I'm trying to just make people laugh. I'm just trying to entertain people. But I'm a little bit antagonistic in it, and that brings out people in the comments that just want to be antagonistic back. And one of the antagonistic comments was, "And who are you sponsored by?" And I was like, "Well, allow me to list off who I'm sponsored by." And then he was like, "Yeah, but I bet you just buy all of their stuff. There's no way these companies are giving you discounts." And this is where I have to bring you back to Ormsby. Not only are we not buying stuff from Ormsby because they're that supportive of everything they do, but they give us guitars. They've given us guitars to give away to people. That is a sign of a nice, generous company. We don't have one to give away right now, but who knows? Maybe in the future we can give you guys another chance to win one. And we hope Austin is, I know exactly. And we hope Austin is enjoying his guitar. So speaking of the fans, go on.
That's a good point. Just before we segue onto the fan mail, I've still got this care pack to send out, so I need to get on that. I apologise to anyone who's not got it yet.
No, totally. I noticed this when I was going through our fan mail email. There's a couple of guys in there that still haven't got their things, and the reason they've not got them is because technically speaking, we're in lockdown and we should be doing minimal, leaving the house and things like that. Anything non-essential is technically a crime, isn't it? Yeah, I mean I know.
It is, but you're right.
The amount of prosecutions on it are it's just such a weird one, isn't it? Because I don't mind going and doing things, but we're in this weird situation where you have to wonder what other people think when you go and do things. You're trying to read what other people's perceptions of your actions are. It's very, very, very strange. Very strange.
It is. It's almost thought crime level. Yeah. Like worrying about, is the perception that I am doing this going to get me in trouble?
Yeah. A year from now, when the world's gone back to normal, are all these people going to think of me as a horrible, selfish asshole that tried to kill them all? Like this. It's definitely. I mean, I am that thing. I would like to, if I could eliminate most people, that would be fantastic. Because then I'd have to see less of them, and that would be wonderful. So to get around that, I just spend all my day in my studio. Anyway, shall we read some fan mail?
Let's move on, Genocidal Clay. Sorry, excuse me. So, first piece of fan mail that we have is from Dan Creek. Thanks for writing in, Dan. I'll just read this in entirety and then we'll answer it because I'm really bad for going off in tangents, as we both know. I don't think I've ever sent anyone any fan mail, so I'm not sure what to say really. I'll just say what I would say if I was talking to you face to face. When I first started learning, there wasn't YouTube, there was barely internet. I wish back then I'd have had easy access to tuition and wider musical concepts. About 10 years ago, I was forced to have about an 8-year break from guitar due to health and hand problems. Then a couple of years ago, I thought, fuck it, I needed to play again. People that don't play don't understand the impact playing guitar can have on mental health. It is without doubt the most soothing thing in my life. Now is an amazing time to be a guitarist. There is so much content to absorb, sometimes it's overwhelming. This is why a channel like yours is so important. I don't think there's another channel that is as honest and straight talking as yours. There is no agenda. If something is shit, you say it's shit. If someone is a dick, you say they're a dick. The openness of talking about mental health and really the true honesty of the channel is quite frankly refreshing. In a swamp of profit-making, biased opinions and content on YouTube, your channel stands tall. Long may it continue. Keep safe. Thanks very much, Stan. Sorry you had a bad time with guitar and then you had to get back into it, but it sounds like it's done you like a really good thing.
Yeah,
and the internet maybe came at the right time for you when you get back into it.
I like this email because it kind of fits really well with the final email, and if I was a little bit more organized, I probably could have put them next to each other. But this idea of like content, guitar channels that the people do want to consume or don't want to consume, and the reasons that they do like watching this channel, it's nice to hear that, and we're going to be able to hopefully give you a few more recommendations of some other channels that you might be able to enjoy. Or maybe even highlight some of the reasons that you don't like some of the other channels that you don't like. But yeah, thank you very much for the email, Dan. Very much appreciated. And as always, we're happy to receive fan mail like the next piece we're about to read that is short to the point and asks a question. We're also happy to read fan mail that's longer and tells us how awesome we are. That's also very much appreciated because
that pads his ego.
Exactly.
All I was going to say on that one before we move on.
Sure.
We do our best to be honest and straight talking and avoid litigation by saying supposedly opinions, in my opinion, etc. I would probably say that we're not entirely unbiased because no outlet at all of any media can be unbiased. But I think Levi and I are very conscious of making our biases obvious. Or expressing them as if it was like if we were doing like a research paper or something. When you're doing something like a thesis, you have to say, here are the biases that would potentially skew the information I'm about to give you. And this is where I'm coming from. Almost like a kind of perspective shot. But, I mean, it's an amazing compliment. Thanks very much. I hope what I said there doesn't really contradict what you've said. Just reinforce that we try our best to be as transparent as possible. We can't always be. We're obviously going to have our own personal biases on things.
Sure.
But, yeah.
But I think for me, that's why I enjoy the show, because we have our own personal biases. And Melissa has said to me that she listens to the show and even goes back and listens to old episodes. And she says it's just refreshing to hear people that just don't agree all the time on everything, and you'll argue with each other about things. You won't scream and shout at each other, but you clearly have very different opinions on things, and you don't mind talking about those things. So even though we have our own personal biases, we're not above calling each other out on our biases on things. And the same should be true of our audience. If you disagree with us on things, or you think that we're showing some personal bias that maybe we've not spotted, we're always happy to hear it. So yeah.
I'm going to put a t-shirt up on the Teespring. Go and check out the Teespring. Just hold me accountable. We'll just go with that.
Yeah.
Hold me accountable. And the Guitar Souls logo in the corner. You're right, and I do like that myself. You and I are always like that though. Generally speaking, if we're not talking shit about things and just having a total laugh, when we do talk about stuff, you'll present your point, I'll present my point, whatever order. And we end up kind of weaving it in between till we get to whether we don't agree or not, or we get to a middle point, which is cool.
It's usually a middle point.
Match.
Yeah, it's usually that middle point of, well, I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me. Going back to our first ever conversation, I still don't like Buckethead. Deal with it.
I know. In the pub, and I'm like, I mean, I think you were fairly sober, and I was probably half cut, and I'm like, you don't even fucking like Buckethead? What are you talking about? It's got like 103 albums in a year.
That's a pretty good impression.
Thank you. That is me, to be fair.
An impression of yourself, yeah.
Aye, that's it. An inebriated version. Anyway, we'll move on. Thanks very much for the message, Dan. Hopefully that kind of gave you an answer to what was basically just a wee statement to us, and thanks very much for the support.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. So the next one, as you say, is a very short one, but quite a good question. I like it. Patrick T. Hey guys, first time listener and first time fan mail writer here. Thanks very much. When it comes to 8 strings or 9, how do you think you'd have to write to not only make a mostly heavy song, but to not be corny chug city? Right, that's a good question, and when I unpack it from just reading it, I assume what you mean is, what are the tropes and pitfalls that people who pick up extended range instruments often fall into that stop them potentially having the full range of the instrument or having something that stands out. And I think that's a really interesting topic, because there's two bands in my mind that do extended range in completely different ways that are fairly unique. I mean, the first one being Meshuggah. You can't mention extended range and not mention Meshuggah.
Yep.
They have the most punishing mechanical brain melting sound in the world, and it's pretty much all low end. Like, I don't even know how else to fucking describe. Some of it's cacophonous, some of it's really intelligent, but it's clearly took a lot of inspiration from Alan Holdsworth and Fusion.
Sure.
But the rhythm parts of those songs are all based on just like being rhythmically complicated and the occasional note. It's less about melody. There are parts with melody in them, obviously. Straw's Pulled at Random, the end of that's beautiful. Which I don't think you can say about many Meshuggah songs. And as their careers went on, they've started doing a lot more, not melody, but kind of riffs rather than just ridiculously heavy things.
Yep.
And After the Burial, or my other kind of side of that, Rare Form is an album I've spoke about on the podcast a few times. That was my first real introduction to a band who played an extended range 8-string, but used it to do a bit of everything. And the album's very playful in the sense that sometimes there's kind of light-hearted riffs. There's a full song that's essentially a breakdown in major, which is really cool. But they take that full range and they play with it. They find where it would augment their original ideas for riffs and stuff to make them better. So with that in mind, I think what I would say, because it's quite a hard question to answer directly.
It's an interesting one because you and I aren't 8 or 9 string players as well. So, and he
True.
does say
I mean,
first time listener. So, you know, probably doesn't know that, or just assumes that because he's really into those things, that everybody's really into those things, but it's not our field of expertise.
Totally. I've had an 8-string guitar, but I didn't have it for that long that I was really into writing songs or anything on it. Maybe I'll have another one again one day, who knows. Kieran's probably a good example of that. Kieran jumps between 6, 7 and 8 all the time, and I don't personally find his content like boring or just chug or whatever.
Sure.
So I think just using him as an example, I think there's probably 3 or 4 things you can do that will help you get away from those tropes. First thing is vary your tempo and vary your time signature. Doesn't have to be super complicated, but just make sure that everything isn't just the same pace.
Yeah.
Certainly not to start with. I think a lot of bands fall into that habit quite easily. Everything sounds at the same pace.
You have a tempo that feels comfortable for the types of things that you're likely to play, and therefore things fit into that. Yeah.
Exactly. So try and break out of that. Make sure that you're doing things that are slower than what you're comfortable with to get that tight as well as faster.
Yeah. And
that you're using the flow of the speed of the music to fit the mood you're trying to go with. Secondly, don't just play open strings.
Sure.
Whether that's drop A or drop E or F sharp or B if you're on a 7, or I don't even know how low a 9-string goes these days. I think that might be tuned to A. I think it's only a semitone between that and E and the F sharp.
Yeah. You look defeated. Let me throw some ideas at you, right? So
no, it's all right, because I know what I was going for. It's all right. Avoid just playing the lowest note on the guitar for the sake of using that as your root note or your starting point, because every band that has extended range, not every band, the majority of bands that use extended range just use it as if harder guitar go burr low. Like, it doesn't have to be that. You can use that to augment it. Imagine it like a really good bass player that's playing on standard stuff but has a low B. You never hear those guys just going straight to the low B for the sake of it. They use that to add to the music, to bring a new flavour or a new musical idea, a run that brings you somewhere else. Like that, like, try and get creative with it. Don't use it just for the sake of having it. And I'd say thirdly, don't fall into the trope of not using melody and harmony just because you've heard so many bands that generally don't do that. Like, if you're going to write like a a porno grind EP, you're not going to worry about any sort of melodic themes in it. But if you're talking about writing music you want to be heavy but also not just corny Chug City, as you say, there's got to be some theme in it that somebody can latch onto, whether that's going to be like a verse riff or a chorus riff or just something in between that is enough to catch attention.
Yep.
That's probably the best I can give. What do you think, Levi?
I think that, well, I'll throw in a couple of names just like you did. Meshuggah, of course, you can't ignore Meshuggah. But the bands that I like that use 8-string, one that jumps to mind would obviously be the Heavy Metal Ninjas. I think the way Richie Allen uses his 8 strings as part of his rhythm section are super cool. But my favourite is always going to be Monuments, because I love the way John uses 8-string, and I don't think I could tell you any bands that are using 9 strings, because it's, metal is not really my scene anymore. But I would say that for me, when I think of like these extended range things and the idea of something being Chug City and trying to avoid that, I think the reason people fall into that pit trap of doing the Chug City is because they're just taking the fact that they have a low note and relying on that low note as being the way you sound heavy, the reason you sound heavy. But of course, heaviness is more than just the notes that you have. Black Sabbath weren't tuned that low, and Black Sabbath have plenty of stuff that you would deem heavy. Slayer, a lot of their stuff's in E flat, and you wouldn't. It's not low, but it's heavy. I like Michael Ackerfeld as the example for this, because he says, I don't like to detune. I don't like to put my guitar in things other than standard tuning. Although, of course, there are examples where he does tune to different tunings. But generally speaking, his logic is, if I write something in standard tuning that's heavy, it should be heavy because it's in standard tuning, not because I've just taken something that's not really that heavy and just detuned my guitar. So being able to have an understanding of really what makes something heavy, that's going to be rhythmic devices and melodic devices, and the setup of tension and resolution within lines. Those are the sorts of things that make things heavy. Having a control over that and then applying that to the extended range, I think, is the way to do things. I think, Monuments, The Origin of Escape from the Amanuensis album. There's a great video of John playing that, doing like a playthrough video of that, and I love that tune. And there's just it's not really, I wouldn't even call it a rhythmic device, but it is. You've just got this repeating da 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 da, and it's just an infectious rhythmic device that you just latch onto that adds a sort of heaviness to things, and it doesn't have to be chug chug chug. There's a cool device, and there's the arrangement is working around that rhythm. So getting stuff like that, and also you mentioned Meshuggah. I want to throw out a mention to a YouTube channel called, it's owned by a guy called Yogev Gabay. That's Yogev, and then Gabay, Gabay. He's been doing a lot of videos called How to Count, or Meshuggah Explained, and he's putting videos up where he's doing, composition and analysis of things like OPEF tunes, and just a really cool way to look into some of the rhythmic complexity of some of this music. I think having an understanding of how that rhythmic complexity works is a much better way to go about implementing it than just sort of trying to imitate the sound and ultimately just going chug chug chug. There's more complexity to things. So that's totally my answer. That's my answer.
That's a great answer. Just before we move on, there was kind of two things you said that resonated with me.
Sure.
When you were talking about like rhythms being interesting, I think you're right. I think it's easy to fall into the pit trap of more time signatures equals really interesting. And then you mentioned about tension release. Like party cannons, at least in my mind, fast, complicated parts are building the tension, getting you to that point where it starts to crescendo and there's some sort of breakdown, and that's where the release happens. It goes away from all the sporadic, crazy parts into something that you could probably follow a lot easier, slower, with the chunk in it. So don't get me wrong, that in itself is a bit of a trope, having just breakdowns in songs and slams. But how you apply it is obviously what's going to make a difference. And the other point you made is talking about how tuning down doesn't equal heavy. I had this argument with someone online who was trying to make out that, I think they were talking about like Immure or somebody, like someone like one of these bands that use 9 strings and tune right down. Not saying they're not heavy, but my argument was just because it's tuned down doesn't make it heavy. And the guy came back and basically said, what are you talking about? You don't know anything and blah, 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 and whatever else. And I went, okay, John Martin's Solid Air. That's probably got one of the lowest acoustic notes I've ever heard, like a low A or something. And I think that's on like a bass, an upright bass. Right. I was like, does that make that heavy? Is that the heaviest song in the universe? Because it's got an acoustic dropped right down. It's also slow. Are you saying that that's now a breakdown chug slam song?
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, no, but you're missing the point. Tuning down does not equal heavy.
Yeah.
It's a good starting point. It helps with the sound.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be something you rely on. It should be something you use.
Yeah, if you take that 9-string song that someone would deem heavy and tune the guitar all the way up to E standard and play it, is it still heavy? Is the question I would ask myself. And when you look at some of the OPEF stuff that we would call heavy, it's glorious because you just know if you tune that motherfucker down, it's still going to be really heavy, potentially heavier.
Really dark choices of melody.
Yeah. So
a lot of distance.
Good question, Patrick. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks very much, mate. Love it. So we're moving on to a regular fan of the show and someone who's pretty much at all of the Monday night Guitar Geek clubs.
Yeah.
If you're not, please join us. 9 p.m. Levi's YouTube channel where you're watching this right now. But 9 p.m. on a Monday, British time. Usually have kind of 25 to 50 people. Maybe a wee bit more than that sometimes.
No, 60 plus now.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Sorry, so it's growing, which is good.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's right, because the last couple of videos you've been saying, like, we've got 60 or 70 people watching. Get that like button pressed.
Yeah.
Get on it. And that's a good point. Please do that, because it helps us with exposure.
Yeah.
We don't get any money for it. We just hopefully get more people checking us out. Maybe we'll get featured, I don't know. Yeah. On YouTube's highlights or whatever it's called. Pardon me. Anyway, Leigh's there most Mondays. Please come and join us. We have a good chat along with the video. I wasn't there last Monday. I might not be here at the time of this broadcast, depending on what happens with my gran tomorrow / today. Different story. Anyway,
I'll be there.
I'm going to... Yeah, Levi's always there. I'm going to read Leigh's letter, but I'm also going to do it in Scottish because he's written it in quite broad Scots. So I'll read it through once, and then...
No, we're not reading it through twice.
You don't want me to do it? All right.
No, because I think that'll be the joy of it. I think
cool.
Give it to them in hard Scottish.
I'll give them in hard Scottish and I'll answer everything in a sensible, understandable way.
Yeah.
Right? And if there's any specifically unclear patter in there, like colloquialisms, I'll explain them. All right?
Well, I should also just throw out there, because I know Yvonne likes to learn new Scottish words or teach people new Scottish words. Patter, meaning conversation, chat.
Yeah, basically like good, funny, relevant, or otherwise just entertaining chat. It's patter. That's good patter, by the way. Or your patter's like water. Your patter is like water, and essentially that's a basic insult saying you are unfunny. Your comments are so commonplace and simple that they are naturally abundant. And in Scotland, water is fairly naturally abundant. We have probably the best drinking water in the world out the tap. Not to rub it in anybody's faces. Get up, England. I'm only kidding. You're all welcome to a glass of tap water when you come up here, man. Some council juice. There's one for you. Yvonne, council juice.
Council juice. Yeah. Council
juice, as in the local council obviously are responsible in some kind for the water that comes into your house. So council juice is water. Anyway, I'll read Leigh's letter. What's happening, lads? Been loving it recently and thought I'd fire in another wee fan mail. So recently I've been getting right scunnered with playing guitar. So in order to try and pull myself out, I decided to try and learn some songs I don't get tired as a quick. I've realised basically that in starting learning these tunes, my dexterity in both my right hand and left are absolute mince. Obviously the way to go to fix this is practice. But the question is, what do you guys automatically go to every time you pick up a guitar? Like when you just sit staring at TV or something, and if you're no challenging yourself to learn a song, do you run scales till you're warmed up? Or is there a song you used to know what form you're on? I start with Deathclock's Comet song, which is only the rhythm parts. But I tried finding some repeating licks to constantly run while I'm watching the telly or mucking about the house. Couldn't find many that isn't just running a scale up and down hour and hour. I'm rambling, but I'd like to know what your guys' opinions are on where to look for something like dexterity exercises and what you guys do to warm up. Much love to the sexy bearded bastards. Keep up the good work. Thanks very much, Leigh. And that was fun to read in Scots.
Yeah, you did it unbelievably fluently, which is enjoyable.
This is my sacred mother tongue.
Okay, so I'll answer this one quick. It depends on who you are as a player, right? Because I think what warming up for one person is to another person are going to be different things. Different players need to be warmed up to different levels in order to play the things that they're playing. Shock horror, I don't really need to warm up when I play the guitar because I'm not really playing anything that's that physically demanding. Most of the stuff that I'm playing on the instrument is more mentally demanding. So my brain has to be in top form because I need to be able to think changes. I need to be able to think harmony and all that type of stuff. The more technical side of my playing is not there so much anymore. But it's worth pointing out, I think, that based on what you're telling me, you talk about practicing in front of the television, you talk about practicing when you're just mucking about the house. How much focused practice time are you getting in? Because I think that while practicing repeating exercises in front of the TV is one thing, there's some value to dedicated, focused practice time where it's just you and the instrument and you're paying deep attention to everything that you're doing. And I think when you're doing that, it's much easier to start working on dexterity exercises because you can start, either focusing on picking sequences or taking a book like I was going to go Scott Tennant's Pumping Nylon, which is a nylon string book that actually I'm sure I referenced last week, or I meant to when you did the Yoda quote, because it's quoted in there as the first quote in the book, which I enjoy.
That wasn't Yoda, it was Bruce Lee. I've told you this.
Yeah. The cover for Pumping Nylon is glorious actually because it's there's a nylon string guitar and then someone doing the bicep, and you're just like, what a fabulously pretentious cover. But something like Thesaurus of Melodic Patterns, anything like that, where you're just mixing things up. It depends what your own personal needs are. But if I'm needing to warm up, like I say, I might run some scales. I'm starting to. Let's go with this. I'm starting to become more of a fan of practicing scales and practicing arpeggios, but not. Let me be clear. Not just running 3-note per string patterns up and down, because then you're sort of falling into the comfortable picking patterns that you play over and over, forcing yourself to mix things up, play caged patterns, play pentatonic patterns, play arpeggio patterns, where you're not just falling into a set amount of notes per string, keeps your picking hand on form. It keeps it awake, if you like, and you're having to pay a little bit more attention to things. So I've been anti-scale for a very long time because I'm largely anti-technique, and people are going to be raging about this, but from practicing a lot of piano, I get the value now of the physical dexterity of practicing, warming up with both my hands, practicing my scales. So for me, I guess it would be that. But generally speaking, I'm not really interested in warming up because, fuck having to put any effort in when you play the guitar, right? I guess that's why I'm a failure.
I mean, if under what criteria do you count as a failure? And what metric do you not succeed as a professional musician?
Well, I don't have a signature Gibson, and apparently that's the only reason I'd criticise Dave Mustaine going to Gibson is because I'm bitter that I don't have one.
Or an Epiphone or a Kramer.
Yeah.
You are 3 times less cool than Dave Mustaine.
I mean, I'm
in that regard.
I was going to say I'm infinitely times less cool than Dave Mustaine, but that's because he's Dave Mustaine and I'm not.
Aye, it's props where props are due, isn't it? Like, even if you're being an absolute fucking weapon, Dave, you're still cool.
Yeah.
Like, you're getting away with it for now, right? But we'll wait and see what you come up with in future. We'll move on to this in a minute, but we'll see.
So what do you think of dexterity?
I think it's a really interesting question, and it highlights 2 problems which you touched on. No problems, but like 2 different, not schools, but 2 different things. First of all, practicing in front of the TV or whatever else and just running your hands, to me, just sounds like muscle memory building. As you say, dexterity. Just getting used to doing shapes and patterns. You're not actively listening at that point, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if your worry is that you want to build up on your rhythm skills, so you want to make sure that you're tighter, that you're on the focus and both your hands are articulated really well, and also that you are developing your ear in terms of not just playability, but the melodic ability you've got and knowing where the notes are that you want to play that express how you're feeling at that point. whether that is just like a major arpeggio or whether you're going to go into a really intricate run that goes back up and down and builds tension. Like, sit in front of the TV, these things can't really get built because you're not focusing on them, but you will build your speed and your dexterity and your muscle memory for shapes and positions, and even position changes. Like, the more I play party cannon stuff, the less I need to look at the fretboard to do stupid changes. And it's just because I'm getting more and more comfortable playing on the instrument and knowing the muscles are right, cool, that feels right.
Sure.
And then you listen a wee bit and you go, oh, I'm like a fret off, and you do it again. And eventually you get it right. And some guys put the tape on the back of their necks on the 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 12th fret to help out with that so you don't have to look. And that's cool. I've never done that personally. I have considered it. But I'm not really in any position where I don't need to look at the fretboard. And I wouldn't even think about trying to play a full party cannon set and not looking at the fretboard at least once. And the second thing is building your ear, building your understanding of what you want to play into the music, whether that's just you're writing riffs and you want to build how that sounds. But you've mentioned, Leigh, you're talking more about doing scales and whatever else. I know you mentioned that you usually practice with Deathclock's rhythm Comet Song with the rhythm parts for your warm-up. Some people warm up with leads, some people warm up with rhythm, some people need to do both, some people don't have to do either. There's guys that can just pick guitars up and just play them.
Some people need to turn their cameras on.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
That is a long t-shirt ad we've had on over that, sorry.
That's all right, mate. Sorry, you could have interrupted me, my bad. Thrown me off there, I've done well.
Yeah.
So I think you need to come at it from two separate schools of thought. If you just want to build up the muscle memory and the basics, where you're not bothered about every single note you're playing being exactly what you want, but you just want to play scales to get comfortable with them and more dexterity, then just noodle in front of the TV. Don't have to pay too much attention. Start on, I don't know, say you're saying like a G major, and you're just playing it up and down the 6 strings, just playing the scale, and then move to something else. There's value in that in the sense that your muscles will get it. I don't think there's value in it. For a personal opinion, I'm not a teacher. Just have to say that outright. This is just my personal opinion from my own experience in playing.
I love that. Like, there's some sort of moral obligation. It's like when you hear people talking, like when lawyers talk about things, when they're talking about, they always have to say, this isn't legal advice and you should be seeking your own legal advice. And they have to do that to cover your asses. Whereas you're just doing it because you're like, well, I want to make sure that people know. I want to put out my own personal biases.
Exactly. But I think even more importantly, right, in the terms of this conversation, this is a question that's perfect for you and a question that's not that good for me because you are a teacher.
But you have more technical facility on the instrument. Like, if he could chase the dexterity of one of us, he's going to go after your dexterity. You're very dexterous on the instrument, and I know why you're more dexterous than me, and it comes down to the things I practice and the way I practice them. So you talking about
excessive riboflavin intake. Only that. Don't tell him, though. That's my secret. Don't know why I said that. Sorry. I don't know. I wouldn't even argue that I'm more dexterous than you. I think there's a lot of stuff you do when you're playing your country stuff, especially with the B benders and your bridge benders and stuff like that. Are really complicated in my brain. Yeah. And then I've seen you doing Frank Gambale licks and being like, I mean, I know you were talking about not falling into the 3-string sweep trope, but he's the exception there because every one of them moves.
Yeah.
I was actually watching a video the other day and it was somebody playing 4 notes, 2 per string. So like, and I was just thinking, how could you really pure economy pick that?
Oh, you
can. I was thinking like, you could just basically just do sweeps.
Yeah. Up, down, down, up, down, down. Yeah.
Exactly right. Up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. And just like, that would be the lick. And I was thinking like, that's such a basic concept that probably so many guitarists already do.
No, well, I'm not going to say nobody, but yeah, Frank can do that at a blistering speed. You have to look at someone like Zakk Wylde and say, it would be much more efficient if you were to do this. But I think actually that's a wonderful example of why you don't just learn technique for speed, you learn them for sound. Because when you do that and you apply that at a ridiculously high speed, you are going to notice that it sounds very, very different from alternate picking. And I would always argue, not always, but I'm usually always going to argue that the alternate picking sounds cooler. There's an aggression to it.
It's funny you say that. I was thinking that myself. Like, Frank's playing when he does that stuff is so fluid, and a big part of that's when he's sweeping, he's not necessarily digging into the strings. He's trying to keep a consistent sound and tone and timbre, I suppose, to a sense.
He's always stroking the string rather than hitting it.
Exactly, and it's just like nice and smooth. There's no aggression. There's no big spike in the volume or whatever. It's almost compressed. Whereas Zakk Wylde, every single pick is like in the string, like pushing it out of place where it should be and letting it twang back and getting that tiny wee change in intonality or intonation. So we've been down a rabbit hole, man. This is like when that guy came into Magnum Sound and asked me, how is there so many songs? My brain just went, well, there's this and then there's that, and it was just like this fractal of possible answers just kept going. Leigh, find some music that you really enjoy playing but that challenges you and just jam over it. I find that doing that's good. Whether it's I want to get my rhythm chops tight, I'm going to play the rhythm part. I want to articulate my hand a wee bit more, I'm going to focus on that. And you don't have to play it over the top of the track. Learn it and just sit and play it while you're watching the telly.
If you want to challenge yourself, dexterity-wise, mate, go and learn some Michael Romeo riffs. Go and learn the chorus to Nevermore. And
no, just the chorus, man. That intro, I know.
Actually, the intro to Nevermore. That's a big good example. It's a nice classic, thirds picking sequence. Tricky things to play, and he has a lot of dexterity in that hand. So, we're going to move on to Johnny Mittens, though.
Yes.
Johnny Mittens.
Thanks very much, Leigh. Appreciate
Final
it,
question
mate.
of the show.
Right, this one's a bit a good read, so I'm going to go right through it, and then we'll talk again. If I am rambling on, Levi, you're welcome to tell me to shut the fuck up and calm down. I have a tendency to do that, as I'm sure everyone's learnt now. An affinity for talking nonsense. So this is Johnny Mittens. Hey Levi and Mike, first of all, thanks for the show. You guys have been a rare ray of light in an otherwise dark 11 months for us all. I love the show. What you guys do is completely different to other guitar-based channels that I've seen on YouTube, which brings me to the crux of this message. I felt bad when you said that your Kiko interview bombed on YouTube, and I must admit that I didn't watch it either. Mainly because I don't know that much about him or his playing. But more than that, over the last 6 months, your channel's become the only guitar-based channel I watch on YouTube anymore, or in fact anywhere else. What you guys do is the only channel I can find that has a shred of integrity. I don't want to stop reading.
But you're going to.
I know, but I wouldn't agree with that, and I'll come back to it.
Sure.
We'll just put a pin in that one.
Sure.
It started about 6 months ago when all the channels that I watched, which is Ola's in Ola England, Rubea's in Rubea Masad, Spectre Sound Studios, which is, what do you call him?
Glenn Fricker,
that's the name. I could see him, but I couldn't think him. Fluff is Ryan Bruce. Yeah. So a lot of the bigger channels all started getting their hands on the new version of the Slow 100. It was annoying to see a shit ton of reviews of the amp all the same time that they'd all been donated, but we all know that's the game. Then recently it was the turn of the Quad Cortex. Literally every big channel has a massive review for this thing. Well, since you're talking about the Quad Cortex, I've got one here.
Hide the logo, because we've not been paid for this. He's totally right though. Like all these amps coming up. Ola, you've picked the clique for that thing. Ola, Rubea, Spectre, Fluff. Like,
they're the people that sound good and that people trust, and they know them because they're public names. And I get that, totally get that. So Kieran, my brother, got one and gave me a loan of his. The best part being, rather than having his name on the back,
it's got his fucking face on it.
Yep, like laser engraved.
Yeah.
Kieran also reached out to Neural to see if there was any way that if I was doing anything with the Party Cannon album, or if I decided to film any content, if they were all right with me using this, and they were like, sure.
Yeah.
Now I haven't really done much, to be honest. I'm a bit scunnered with guitar at the moment, just with everything going on in my personal life. Excuse me, I need to fix my microphone. It's decided to fall over.
But just point out, like all those channels, that it's not just that they're all reviewing the same stuff. They're all reviewing the same stuff at the same time, and they're all doing that because they've got an embargo. They're all working to the same embargo. Sometimes Ola is the one that manages to secure the exclusive on it. You might get 24 hours of access. But ultimately, yes, in those scenarios, you guys are, as the people watching the channel, you are the product that is being sold to. They've built up their platforms, and then they can then sell stuff to you. And I appreciate how people might say a similar thing with this, because we're ultimately marketing the Ormsby stuff at you, but it's not quite the same, because we're not just going to take the money and well, there's no money for us actually. We're not just going to take the money and take the money and then pretend that we're not, like you get in a lot of those cases. We're not just going to put things on the show and talk about them because there's business involved. Like that's how those brands, that's how Ola stays in business. That's, well, not how he stays in business, but that's his one of his prime things. It's advertising stuff to you guys in exchange for money, and I don't ever want to be that. So yeah, I don't want to be that.
I think another side of that coin, just before we move on, I don't want to start falling into my usual of going off in tangents.
Mate, you picked up a quad Cortex to show Kieran's face on it, and then he's saying I don't want to do my usual. We're already there.
But will I tell you one worse?
Yeah, go on.
I've had this for 2 weeks and I haven't even taken it out of the box. That's the first time it's been out the box. I am a terrible human.
Yeah.
Terrible human.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, I'll just move on.
That says a lot, doesn't it? And this is me kind of half bagging on Neural, but no, it's not. I'm really bagging on the YouTube scene in general. Like, they sent Kieran one of those because they want Kieran to hopefully be using it in things, because they see Kieran as a marketing tool, just as they see all of these guys as marketing tools. And I totally understand why guys like Johnny Mittens, who are clearly wise to it now and feel like they understand now that they are the product and they're constantly being sold to. I can see why that would leave them just exhausted with YouTube and not wanting to tune into things. But sorry, I'll allow you to continue reading.
No, that's all right. Like, I know it can be intimidating seeing 6 or 7 of the biggest channels all of a sudden having their hands on these things and being told when they can release content. I get that. Totally get that.
Yeah.
All I was going to say is these guys obviously have a name for making stuff sound as good as they can, and their content depends on that. Like, you wouldn't go to Andy Sneap because you think he sounds bad. Same way you don't watch Ola's content or Rubia's content because you think they're going to make something sound shit. Yeah. And that's all I want to say about the slow. I think the problem is that Soldano amps, generally speaking, there's no setting that they sound bad. They're just some of these amps just work, sound great all the time. Yeah. And a big part of that will also be their signal chain. Yeah. Guys that know how to mic a cab, or they've got a really nice load box or whatever. Anyway, now for me, I'm not in the I'm not in the market for anything like that, so I simply don't click on the videos. But this has now grown to the point where I don't even watch the channels anymore at all. I think that's a shame, but I'll come back to that. Yeah. The only guitar content I watch is the Guitar Souls, and that's it. I'd rather watch the History Channel or listen to Bill Burr than watch Rob fucking Chapman do a video on how he is in the market for fucking 3 custom-made guitars. The lack of self-awareness is staggering. Whilst the country crumbles into financial ruin, this clown is gleefully letting us all know how he's lumped thousands on a trio of hand-built guitars. Well, fucking good for you, dude. Or Rabia spending 3 full videos changing expensive pickups in his custom shop strat. I just don't care. Same with Instagram. Further your video from a couple of weeks ago, I couldn't agree more. My feed is literally filled with promoted players who are either playing a million notes a minute or some girl in hot pants staring into the camera with anime eyes playing the intro to fucking Crazy Train. I know I'm coming across as a curmudgeon. I'm in my 40s, I've played guitar for 30 years, I love the instrument, and I still love playing as much as I possibly can. And I don't want to be that old guy going, it was all better in my day, because it wasn't. I just wish that all this technology and media that we have at our fingertips would come bundled with a shred of integrity for us in the nosebleeds. Good pun, by the way, shred of integrity. So, in summary, I'm sorry I didn't watch your Kiko interview. Guitarists in general are full of shit and I don't care about anything they have to say. I like your show and I like the fact that you call bullshit when you see it, and sadly that's a rare commodity in the guitar community. Please feel free to call bullshit on this if you feel it is. Keep doing what you're doing, and if you can recommend me any other channels that are free of corporate cocksucking, I'd be happy to check them out. Fuck a Tory.
Right. Okay.
Amen, Johnny. There's a lot in this.
I'm going to call bullshit.
Do you want to go first, Levi?
I'll call bullshit, yeah.
Go for it.
So, in summary, I didn't watch your Kiko interview. Guitarists in general are full of shit. Kiko's not. You know, you talk about loving guitar since you were 10. You should know more about everybody that's on the scene, right? And the one bit of feedback that I've got on that interview from people time and time, and I missed it. I totally missed this. But it's how intelligent Kiko is and how he talks about the music business and his artistic vision for things and the way he sees things changing in the industry. It's good in that respect. But the other thing that you talk about where it's like, better in my day and Instagram being the way it is. Look, ultimately, if you're watching content on the internet, it needs to make money, unless someone's just doing it as a hobby, and in which case they will not be reliable with their content, right? Everything that I do on YouTube, everything that I make, it does need to make money. Unfortunately, that's the nature of it. And there are two ways you can do that. You can either suck on that corporate dick, or you can have your audience contribute to the way to the show, or whatever it is that you're doing continuing. We sell t-shirts because that's the way that we would like to keep this show going, rather than just having to go out and sell ourselves and make money off of companies advertising things to you just so we could keep a show going. That just doesn't make sense to me. So like, obviously my channel is Patreon funded. That's the reason. That fundamentally, mate, is the reason why I can call cunts cunts. That fundamentally is the reason I can say, if I don't like something, I don't like it. Because it doesn't matter what the company thinks of me. It doesn't matter what the person I don't like thinks of me, or how they're going to try and blacklist me from the business. And many, many people have tried. None of that matters, because all of my supporters stop that from mattering. Because I have a bunch of people that all give me a little bit of money every month, I don't need to worry about losing my access to the business elsewhere. I'm not going to get an exclusive on any of these products. I'm not going to get early access to any of these products. And that's because I am a fucking loose cannon, and companies cannot trust me to toe the line, But ultimately, that is the reason why people support what I do. So I have to say, mate, you should be supporting people in what they do. Now, that doesn't, let me be clear, that doesn't mean that I'm saying you should be supporting me financially, because ultimately I only need a tiny portion of my audience to support me financially to make what I do viable. But you should be supporting what I'm doing in terms of not even necessarily watching the content. Sure, you've missed out by not watching that Kiko interview, right? But you should have fired it on. You should have thrown a like on it. You should have left a comment on the video, because it helps the channel, which in turn means that I can get bigger names involved in things, and I can do bigger and better things, right? And I can reach more people and all that stuff. Like, the reason the channels that you hate have proliferated as much as they have is, well, one, they steer into the clickbait thing, but also it's because they get the engagement on the videos, which means it gets shared with more people. YouTube share it to more people, right? The only way this channel grows is with your help and your support. So fucking tell people about it, and then maybe more people like KDH are going to spring out of the woodwork and go, you know what, yeah, actually, I do like the stuff that Levi's doing. I do like the integrity there. I'm going to do more of that stuff rather than sucking on that corporate dick. Thoughts, Mike?
I love that you mentioned KDH, because he's one of the first people that come to mind when you talk about good content that is open, unbiased, not about, look what I can get. And there are still a few other guys out there that are big that are doing the same thing. I think Rhett Schul is really good. And when you mentioned the quad cortex, is a great example. He does a video about the quad cortex, essentially shooting out that between the Helix and the Axe FX3, and what he thinks are better and what are worse, and where it's got its drawbacks, and what it's good for, and where it would be a great application. I think he's a great example of, generally speaking, a honest content creator. It's not, here's what I get, and he even says in that video, like, I got a quad cortex on loan, I've got the option to buy it if I want to. My opinion is not being bought in any way. They are well aware of what I'm going to say, and this is my actual opinion, and that I'm not going to hold back, and this is where I'm going to talk about it. And quite honestly, I don't think a company like Neural would be too worried about getting bad reviews.
Sure.
Because their stuff is good. Like, there's no way around it. Their stuff is really good.
Yeah.
And Rhett brings up a couple of really good points in his videos. Going beyond that and talking to people, YouTube channels that have a good amount of integrity. Arnold plays guitar. Arnold's great. His stuff is always unbiased.
Yep.
Kalen's is always unbiased. KDH. I did have a couple other channels in mind, but they seem to have escaped me.
Yeah. I made a list of a couple, literally just two actually. One would be Signals Music Studio. That's Jake Lizio's channel. I'm working on a collaboration project with him at the moment, and
Nice.
We get on because we totally agree in terms of the things that you're talking about. Jake's been a long time supporter of my channel on Patreon. Jake's got 450,000 subscribers, and Jake will put his money where his mouth is and actually fucking follow through in working with me on things and supporting me in things, because what he believes to be right is much, much more important than what is trendy and following the trends on YouTube. So huge
Real
YouTube channel.
recognise real.
Yeah, but he acknowledges that, and I didn't want to suggest it's because he has affiliations with me, but look, you being on YouTube and whatever your scene is, but I can talk about the guitar one, is just like being in high school, right? It's just like being in high school. There are the little cliques that form and they stick to each other and no one on the outside is allowed in type thing. And I'm not saying there's just one clique, because of course you've got that kind of Rabia Massad, Rob Chapman, the Andertons vibe type thing, but then you've also got the gear channels like the Olas and the Spectre Medias and the Fluff thing. Like it's their own little clique, and if you're not part of it, you're not getting in. You've got the Rick Beato clique. You're involved in that or you're not involved in that. Everybody knows that I was involved in it for a short period of time, and then boom, poof, gone. No mention of me ever again. No contact ever again. And that I'm just not cool. I'm just not part of that clique. So you have to be aware of who these fucking cliques are and make sure that there is an independent voice out in there on YouTube that you can trust. And I think Jake acknowledges that is the case, because these cliques won't let him in, despite the fact he's fucking huge. The other channel I'd recommend is Sean Tubbs. Sean Tubbs is a great player. He does a lot of gear reviews.
Sean does a lot of stuff for Rev.
Yeah.
And obviously being a ridiculous player with a ridiculous background, he's another guy that all his stuff's unbiased, but there isn't a single amp or guitar that he puts his hands on that he can't make sound good.
Yeah.
Just one of those guys.
Yeah, when I'm making the recommendation of Sean, it's like, sure, I am making that recommendation from a place of I like his playing. Like, sure, his videos are still paid for, in the sense that he's doing paid reviews of things, or he's doing demos rather than reviews, I would say. But I've been vocal about the fact I don't subscribe to many music YouTubers, because I don't want to watch music stuff when I'm on YouTube. I do music all damn day. When I go to YouTube, I want to watch things that aren't music related. But Sean Tubbs is one of the guys that I do actually subscribe to, because I'm always happy to see some of his playing, because it's cool. It's not another, amp go chug a chug. Can we make does it chug? Yes. If you have experience as a recording engineer and you know how to mix things, anything goes chug a chug. If you turn up the gain to a reasonable level, palm mute that low string, chug a chug chug, and EQ it effectively in post. Everything goes chug a chug. Well done. How unique.
Can't really argue with that. That's totally fair.
God, I sound like a bitter old curmudgeon myself.
No, not at all. I think that loops back to the people you're talking about. The reason that Ola and Rabea and even Glenn, as much as I don't want to admit it, and Fluff and stuff, the reason they are as popular is because they have went from using a couple of small amps and not sounding that good to getting better at technique and sound, even production, signal path stuff, understanding their gearing, going up through the ranks. And brands have recognised that and seen that they've taken a natural path, a progression into that level, and then they start getting offers. And I don't think those offers necessarily negate the validity of their opinions. I don't think everybody is bought and paid for. I don't think that all of these channels are doing this just for the sake of, we need to make this sound good and not talk about the bad things. I think these guys are probably just happy doing what they do. Like, Ola's not known really for coming up with elaborate clean tones. He's known for will it chug, as you said. Sure. One of his actual staple things is, we take any amplifier you can think of, any signal path you can think of, and try and make it sound heavy.
Make it sound exactly as you'd expect it to.
Exactly right. And that's because, as you said, the right signal path and a good EQ and post-processing, you can make anything sound good. You can literally polish turds.
Yeah.
Like, pop music's the perfect example. There are people out there who genuinely can't sing at the top of the charts. People who have almost no musical, or way less musical knowledge than the people in their band that are somehow supporting them. Again, that's not me being a dick or being like, these people don't deserve it. Like, if you've got the talent and you're an entertainer, fucking wire in. But sometimes people misinterpret their integrity for their own price for what to get further or whatever else. I don't know. It's a really, really interesting situation. Another channel that I wanted to, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier on or not, but Bradley Hall's channel, I always think his stuff's really good. I don't know if he's got any sponsorships or whatever else, but his stuff's just playful, it's fun, it's cool. It's like the kind of thing that I probably wanted to do when I was younger, but just couldn't. Like, I'm going to learn this guitar solo backwards just because I can. Like, that guy's fucking talented.
Yeah, I like Bradley.
And that's natural, cool content. And then, as you mentioned, was it Master of Puppets he was doing, or Rust in Peace?
I did Rust in Peace,
album?
did the full Rust in Peace album. And
that's fucking cool.
Yeah, for the anniversary of Rust in Peace. And I mentioned that, but kind of highlighting what I said, like, and I can say I like Bradley because aside from he does put in a lot of fucking work into the stuff that he's doing. He asked me to be involved in that Rust in Peace thing, and he had no reason to do that. It wasn't of benefit to him. It wasn't. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to clout chase and get Levi Clay in my videos." He just likes the stuff that I'm doing. He was like, "Do you want to play a small part in it?" I'm like, "Absolutely, sure, yeah, fuck it, why not?"
You played one of the solos in Holy Wars, didn't you?
Hangar 18. I did the sweeps, the Mighty Friedman, the sweeps part. So
that's right.
Busted out the Vigier for it. Good times. So I need to give that guitar some love again. Right, we're running long, so should we get onto these stories?
Yes. I hope that covered everything you were asking, Johnny. If it didn't, tune in tonight, 9 o'clock. Tomorrow, from when we're actually
recording. Already here. He's already here.
Yes, Monday night, 9 p.m. This will probably be about 10 o'clock by this point because I'm just rambling. If we've not answered your point efficiently, please re-question it in the chat or send another email, and I'd be more than happy to readdress it. But we will move on at the moment. Thanks very much for the messages.
Let's talk Dave Mustaine.
Speaking of sellout.
Yeah, my video was Dave Mustaine joins Gibson. Dave Mustaine sells Gibson, but who's buying?
He looks like in the Gibson welcomes Dave Mustaine and Megadeth as a Gibson brand partner, right? See that video? Do you not think he looks like an old woman that's changing Tupperware type on like a QVC channel? And I used to use this tin of Tupperware, and I secretly always wanted the Pyrex dish instead of the plastic. But then I got it, and I was like, oh my God. And he's like, shut up, man. It's quite obvious that you've went, money! Big diamonds in your eyes.
One of the comments that I made in my video about him, and that people kind of jumped on, is I said, look, Dave Mustaine, Megadeth might be Dave Mustaine, sure, it's his band, but Dave Mustaine is not the best guitar player in Megadeth.
Never has been.
He's not the guitar player in Megadeth. Like he's the singer, he's the songwriter, he's the driving force behind it, but he's not the guy. I don't care what Dave Mustaine is playing. And people jumped on me for that. Like, what if you don't care what Dave Mustaine is playing, then you don't care about Megadeth. And I just wanted to kind of respond to that a little bit by saying there are a lot of bands that I could think of where, honestly, I can't even tell you the name of the guitar player in the band, let alone what they play. Because what I care about is the fucking music more so than what the guitar player happens to be playing. And in this instance, though, even if we acknowledge that Dave Mustaine, even if I concede the point that Dave Mustaine is the guitar player in Megadeth, he's the important one, he's the one that everybody cares about, to use that as your argument and then say this is why I care about Gibson is just an absolute crock of shit, because Dave Mustaine has not played Gibson in his career. He's just not done it. And he can say that he's always wanted to as much as he fucking likes. As I'm not the age of the fans that were into Megadeth, but a lot of people will say to me, yeah, but the people that grew up listening to Megadeth, they're now in a position where they can afford to buy a Gibson, so they'll probably be really interested by this. And to that, I say no, because those people grew up listening to Dave Mustaine, watching Dave Mustaine, and he was playing Jackson guitars, or he was playing ESP guitars, or he was playing Dean guitars. You know what I mean? Like he's played a lot of things. You're just going to go and buy what he used to play. You're going to pick up the vintage, but it probably is the right term, actually. You're going to pick up an era-correct version of what Dave was playing when he was at his peak. You're not going to go, oh, well, he's playing Gibson now, so I'm going to fork out $5,000 on one of these monstrosities. You know what I mean?
A collection of random Vs with different names, different brands on the headstock, but generally all the same. Yeah. I think if Dave Mustaine was really that bothered about playing Gibson, he would have went to Gibson at the same time that Al Petrelli was in the band, because he has played almost exclusively Gibsons, and he plays an Explorer in the live DVD for So Far So Good, So Live, I think the DVD is. Back when Al Petrelli was in the band, and he's like, obviously he had an in to play a Gibson at that point. If he was that bothered, he would.
Yeah, we're talking about ins though. Like the way to get in with Gibson is knowing somebody that Gibson. You're in fucking Megadeth. You're in one of the biggest thrash bands in the world. He's always had an in at Gibson. In the same way that, like, you know, Jim Root is talking about, oh, here's this custom shop Gibson that they sent me, and I've not opened it for 10 years. Like, I'm sure many times Gibson have tried to get Dave Mustaine.
Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing we should do is look at the guitars because they are fucking ugly.
Oh, that's incorrect. What we should really do is just laugh at the promo picture that they put out of Dave, where they clearly photoshopped the picture to hide his dad bod.
Well,
And,
I mean that's the next bit.
Put a wee curve in the body of the guitar. Initially, I thought maybe that's just a wee curve in the body of the guitar, but when you look closely, you can see that there's some weird editing that's gone on in the image. Very, very strange. And then, of course,
Yes.
Dave deleted that image and updated it and put a version that didn't have that curve in there, the one that had been more correctly edited. So that's
Still haven't
quite
fixed that big giant long arm though.
Yeah, someone pointed out that he's got like a weird banana finger in it. His little pinky finger.
His
looks
pinky.
like it's,
I think it was Kendo.
yeah, much longer than it should be. But yeah, talk about these guitars. And I was right. Dave Mustaine isn't just releasing a Gibson. There was more to it than that. We talked potentially Kramer. We talked Epiphone, and just to say that he's officially joined Gibson, or he's officially got a Gibson guitar coming.
Let's just
we don't know that.
let's just go with his quote. I feel I am finally at home with Gibson, and I am proud of what we're building together. Then
Strange.
You wouldn't have a Kramer as well.
Yeah.
But besides all of the bluster in the market and stuff, right, there are some pictures here of the Mustaines. I'd assume you're going to bring them up on
Yeah, they're all on screen.
Right? So if we start with that headstock, with the Dave Mustaine truss rod cover and the Vic Rattlehead inlay, pretty cool. I quite like that. I think that could be interesting on a guitar.
Sure.
Which guitar would definitely matter. I mean, this is obviously an acoustic with the big bronze strings, which doesn't make sense to me to have that on an acoustic. I think it's an appropriate kind of image for an acoustic guitar, at least for the Megadeth parts that he'll be playing on it. It's not as if he's going to be rattling out the fucking solo to piece cells on that.
Yeah.
But then, let's see the actual electric guitars. So the first one, the unveiled prototypes, the silver Flying V, the Gibson one with the banana headstock.
Yeah.
Looks like a cheap Dean.
Yeah.
It looks like a baby V Dean.
Yeah.
I'm not being wide. It does. Nothing about it looks good. The pickups are a different colour to the plastics of the surrounds, which is a very small point, but a lot of cheap guitars have that, where they use cheap plastic on the top of the bobbins.
Yeah. The knobs on it are quite funny. You know, the
so close together.
Yeah, but you've got them going diagonally up the guitar, but then there's an additional knob that runs parallel to the pickups.
Don't know if it'll be 2 volumes and a tone, or if it's 2 tones and a volume, like a master volume. Who knows, man? It's weird. It's at least 2 knobs more than Dave needs.
Yeah, someone said this. Like, why has Dave Mustaine got a tone control? Does he often find himself rolling back the tone on his guitars? Which I do think is a silly argument, to be fair. I wouldn't make it myself, but...
I mean, I would make that argument if it weren't for the fact that there is live footage of Dave Mustaine playing a semi-hollow V with an orchestra or a symphony, and his guitar sounds like fucking bees.
Yeah. We had that guitar in the Guitar Interactive studio to review. Doug reviewed it, and it was a fucking stinker.
I mean, I can imagine it's a cool-looking guitar. It does look cool, but why would you ever make a semi-hollow V? There's no need. There is none. Nobody wants that. So, speaking of nothing or unwanted, completely unwanted and confusing is this fucking horrible, weird green burst Rust in Peace edition. What's that got to do with Rust in Peace?
Everybody
the cover
knows
for Rust in
that
Peace
this
is fucking blue.
Well,
the only thing that's green that's the diamond.
Yeah, I was going to say he's holding the
Where's the reference to a diamond on this guitar though? I suppose the inlays are a wee bit diamondy.
Yeah.
But that green burst, no.
Yeah, nothing that says Gibson on it is ever going to make me think Rust in Peace. I'm sorry, that's just the way that is.
what upsets me about this guitar is it looks like they've done the same kind of blending, if you want, with the burst as they do with the Antigua bursts, which just ends up them all being a flat colour eventually in time. So this is going to be a really ugly, unsightly greeny yellow in 30 years' time.
I would say that the only thing we can hope that this maybe means is that when the world starts again, maybe they're going to do a Rust in Peace anniversary tour, and they're going to film it and put out a Rust in Peace 30th anniversary tour, and this will be the guitar that he plays on it. I'm not saying that would make the guitar any better. I'm just kind of using this guitar as a way of hoping that something cool is coming.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this is a step forward.
Yeah.
You might find that Gibson as a brand want to start putting a lot more money into the promo for him and that stuff, so there might be DVDs for that.
The acoustic can get right in the bin.
I was going to say the one that really fucking gets me is this ugly ass acoustic. What the fuck is going on with that? The body looks weird and stumpy. In fact, you know what? It looks like the kind of acoustic that Elvis would play, but that a wee boy has drew in 2000s, thinking, how can I make this look like a Limp Bizkit acoustic guitar that Elvis would play?
Yeah, the inlays.
It is so confused as an instrument.
Yeah, not a fan of that. And then the Kramer, which I find fascinating, absolutely fascinating, because for a company that has tried, well, I don't know if they still are, but certainly were suing Dean. It's very bold that Gibson would then take, like the Jackson King V, but also the guitars that Dave has been playing with Dean, and just be like, yeah, we're just going to do what you were doing over there and just put our name on the headstock. Like, this is the company of all companies that has an issue with other companies doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That's it. What's that about protecting your legal copyrights?
Yeah,
that's.
Yeah, we'll have to see where this goes, because all these are prototypes. We don't really know what's coming yet.
Yes.
I have to say, I'll repeat myself, I'm just not all that interested in Dave playing. There's never been a time where, even when he was with any brand that he's been, never been a time where I thought, you know what, I want to get a Dave Mustaine guitar. You had one though, didn't you?
I had a DV8R, and that was, in my opinion, the nicest of all his signatures.
Yeah.
Other than the DV8, obviously, because I had the matching headstock. But I had a black one, so it didn't matter.
I'd just always rather go for the Kiko guitar is fucking cool, like one of the older Marty Friedman signatures.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm not a fan of his, I'd still sooner play a Chris Broderick guitar than I would play a Dave Mustaine one.
That's fair enough, man. I haven't played the Broderick, the Jackson signature that he had, that one.
Yeah.
I haven't played one, but my DV8R was probably the guitar that got away. I was talking about it this week, actually, with Andy Torrance. That's one that I sold that I really wish I hadn't. Just because it was a great guitar. It played great, felt great, it looked good. It was just a cool guitar.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really bothered that it was a Dave Mustaine one. It was great that it was. But the only distinguishing feature of that, between that and just being like an ESB Cool V that played great, was the 8-ball logo in the first fret.
Yeah.
So no big deal. And it was just a great guitar.
Yeah.
Just before we move on, I want to laugh at this quote for Caesar, the Gibson CMO. Working with Dave is especially gratifying because he is a guitar nerd like me, who gets involved in every aspect of the development of the concepts and ideas we've been designing with him at the Gibson lab. Okay, what's different about any of these guitars?
Yeah.
That Dave put involvement in? Can we have horrible inlays, please? And a headstock that doesn't really match the guitar? Oh, I really want some terrible finishes.
This kind of pulls things back really nicely to the conversation that we had earlier from one of the questions where we're talking about integrity in YouTubers, though, right? Because you expect this shit from Gibson because you acknowledge that they are just trying to sell you something. So it doesn't make me want to vomit in my mouth quite in the same way that when there's a YouTuber doing that's doing all this same marketing speak to you, makes me want to vomit in my mouth. I just expect this of Gibson, and it's so easy for me to just see it for what it is. You're just trying to sell me some bullshit. I don't trust you. I don't trust you as far as I could throw you. I'd buy something, sure, but I'd have played it in a shop many times before I'd just go and buy it just because you told me it's good. Because that statement there could apply to literally any artist that they ever put out. It's just the way that is.
Yep. Dave had a signature Tascam CD playback thing that you could slow the music down on.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes, doesn't it? A guy that's never... has he done any teaching?
No.
I don't think Dave's ever been a guitar teacher. All of a sudden, there's a signature piece of technology that allows you to slow music down so you can learn it easier.
Yeah.
A great tool. Don't see the relevance in Dave Mustaine's name being on it other than making money.
Yeah. Speaking of making money, I want to go through these last couple of stories as fast as humanly possible because the show's going super long. But we've talked about this before. John Petrucci with the 8-string. It's now official that John Petrucci is using an 8-string on the next Dream Theater album because, of course, you need to try and find something in order to... I was going to say keep relevant, but let's not go with that. You need to find some reason to have a new signature product that you can sell because I would imagine... I'm probably way off base on this, actually, but I would imagine that John Petrucci probably makes more money selling signature guitars than he does from Dream Theater now.
That wouldn't surprise me because his range are seen across the board, and they're
Yeah.
good guitars.
They're
like,
great guitars,
Credit where
yeah.
credit's due. They're
Yeah.
lovely. Like Music Man makes some great stuff. Even the Sterling stuff's really good.
Yeah.
OLP as well. I think
Yep.
they're like the lowest run of Sterling. Even their guitars are really good.
Yeah.
I suppose this is a really good segue back to the fan mail, because for Patrick T, if you don't want to use an extended range guitar and make it sound shit, don't be John Petrucci. Don't do it for just the sake of it.
Yeah. Do it because it's something you live and breathe. And I'm happy, I'm sure we said this last time, happy to eat my words on this. Happy for the new Dream Theater to come out and there to be 8-string all over it, and me to go, you know what? That's a really interesting use of the 8-string. You've really done something really cool with it there. You're really mixing it up and doing things. But it's no. John Petrucci plays 7-string like you play 6-string. It's the same thing but heavier. Or I shouldn't say heavier. Same thing but lower. Chugga chugga but lower. Chugga chugga riffs, spider riffs but lower. I really hope he does something really fucking cool with it. But yeah,
He's always been.
I'll check it out. I will check it out.
Yeah, of course you will. You're a fan for life, whether you want to admit it or not. You're to look at you. You're even styling yourself based on John Petrucci in the photo for this article. That's your rage face. Sorry, I was going to say, like, John's always been really interested on a 7-string, and he does bring out the best in that. We can only hope for the sake for the 8, but we're getting into old conversation territories. I think it's probably going to be I'm playing an 8-string just for the sake of getting more attention to the LTE and Dream Theater stuff, and as you say, making money.
Wild didn't take this long, because he was playing 7-strings back on Awake, which is like 94, I think, 1994. He had a signature with Ibanez, signature 7-string, and then he went back to 6-string almost exclusively for a long time. He did move over to some 7-string stuff again. There's some 6-string detuned on 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, but by and large, mostly 6-string. But the point is, he has the experience of what it's like to play a 7-string, and he's had that since 1994. So surely, when the popularization of 8-string started to happen, I don't know, 10 years ago, would be the time he'd be like, yeah, let's try this new cutting edge sound out. Let's see what we can do with this. But he didn't. So it just feels like a trend follower rather than a trend setter now, to me, at least.
Fair enough.
What do I fucking know? I'm not in Dream Theater, so... and still bitter about it.
That's fair enough, mate. That's fair enough. So I think that's one we're just going to have to wait and see, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's totally we'll judge it on its own merits.
But speaking of heavy,
here is the heaviest guitar cabinet on the planet. I only spotted this as you and I were chatting about doing this.
Yeah.
And obviously you said I've been past this and didn't even realise what it was.
Yeah.
So anybody that's aware of heavy music is probably aware of Ville d'Arte, who are potentially up there as one of the heaviest bands in the world in terms of at least musical motifs. It's super low tuned, almost devoid of any real standard melody.
Yep.
And ridiculous guitar tones, lots of gain, lots of bass. Kind of like the ultimate gent, really, like taking it to the nth degree. And this picture from Top Floor Studios, studio in, I think, Gothenburg. Yep, Gothenburg in Sweden, are reamping guitars for Ville d'Arte. And the quote on the YouTube, or sorry, the Facebook post is, reamping with Ville d'Arte. Literally very heavy guitars. Granite heavy. There's a reason this cab has never left the studio live room. And there, in all of its glory, is a Granite 2x12. That's right, I said a Granite 2x12, as in a granite box designed to be a cab with 2 speakers mounted in the front. Now, they're on weird kind of baffles. I assume that's to stop them just vibrating through the granite and being deadened. But how dense must that cab sound?
I have to say that, I don't know, saying there's a reason this cab's never left the live room, when in the second picture you can clearly see that it's in a box with casters on the bottom of it that can be wheeled around. Don't tell me this thing's never fucking left the studio. Of course, you've got it set up to move.
I think his point is it's never been out of the building, which I certainly, if it has stairs, would not want to fucking do.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah, to me, it's a shame that they didn't provide some videos and clips of this, because I'd be interested to hear it and then to be able to compare it to something else. But, you know,
what
fine.
difference it makes.
Cab made out of granite. Why not? Why not?
Well,
Also,
what
some images of an SM7B. Not your
is a rim
traditional.
cab?
I believe
A
that's
rim
your
mic.
SM7B, right? Yeah.
7B with the foam removed. That's
Yeah.
the rim mic. And then you've your 257s, but it looks at doing the Friedman technique,
Well,
on cap and off axis, which industry standard for a reason. Sounds fucking good. Generally gets a lot of the horrible tones of guitar out.
Yeah.
If not, puts them in a place where you can EQ them quite easily. There is comments on this. Someone's asking for impulses of this cab, so we might get to hear how it sounds.
Somebody has asked the question, what record has this been on? Need to hear it. And Top Floor Studios has responded, the latest Raised Fist album is one, but it's been on a bunch. So
Right, we'll need to give that a listen then.
yeah. Okay, and then on to our final story of the day. Strange one. I initially didn't know how I felt about talking about this, especially as with the link that's been provided. It's your classic, like, oh, we're a news website, but you need to pay if you want to read the whole story. We'll give you the title and then, yeah. But the title is Spotify forced to defend multi-million-pound podcast deal with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. I guess she's not Meghan Markle anymore, but...
and the tagline is Spotify's paid the Duke and Duchess a reported £18 million to produce and host podcasts celebrating kindness and compassion.
Sure.
Now, this is a wee bit clickbaity, because it's not just about the fact they've been paid, which is bad enough. It's also mental they got less than Joe Rogan. Being...
No, it's definitely not, because they don't have the same audience.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I just think, given that they... I would think they'd probably pull in bigger numbers than Joe Rogan. Joe's had a podcast for years and has a sustainable fan base. These are two people who have been in the royal family, one of which, since he was born, his mother was killed by the royal family, in my opinion.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. By the way, look into that, it's fucked up. Anyway, we're not talking about Princess Diana, but like these are worldwide icons. Like Joe Rogan's became notorious in the last 10, 15 years in MMA and podcasting world. Meghan Markle's been an actress, or is an actress rather, and then joined the royal family, and then they've both left the royal family, which is a thing that nobody does.
Sure.
So I would assume that just the global hype based on...
I get where you're coming from. I do get where you're coming from. They are a bigger name in terms of like just your general celebrity status and how much people talk about them. But I just have to... I was happy to run with this story because I knew that we probably wouldn't agree, but certainly not in any like aggressive manner. I don't think they're the same level as Rogan, because while they absolutely have people that are interested in them, I think it's just mostly like, you 70-year-old aunt. I just don't think it's a podcast audience, if you know what I mean.
Well, therein lies a very interesting point. It's funny you said that, sorry to cut you off.
Sure.
The real controversy about it is, from what I understand, from reading a couple of other articles, apart from this one, I know this one's behind a paywall, is that they spoke about, or the deal was meant to be, it was them reaching out to the general public and just everyday citizens and having chats with them and featuring them in their stories and their stuff and whatever else, right? And just basically claiming to talk to normal people and people on the ground and working class and blah, blah, blah. Their first podcast, I think, maybe had a couple of people at random, and then the next one had hundreds of celebrities. So like, right, so you've got all this money for this platform and this podcast that you're saying you're going to be using to reach out to the general public, and then all of a sudden you've got all these other names like Elton John coming on to give you vox pops.
But allow me to do my typical Levi Clay cynical thing. What's the chances that that's because they did an episode with all the randos on? It was nowhere near as fucking popular as they had anticipated it to be, and then has gone, okay, well, what we need to do is we need to bring in a bunch of celebrities just so we can drive up some interest in what we're doing, and then we can go back to what we were planning on doing initially. Because you know me, I'm super cynical about stuff like this. £18 million, I'm not going to sit here and say isn't a lot of money, but also in the grand scheme of things, Spotify money, it's not a huge deal of money. Prince Harry is your prime example. There has never been a better definition of being born with a silver spoon. You know what I mean? To walk away from the royal family is one thing, but then to completely capitalize on that still, like there's one thing of not performing your royal duties, but as far as I'm concerned, as far as the general people my age are concerned, I don't think that we really have an understanding of what someone's royal duties are. To us, I'm sure you're probably the same. We look at someone like Prince Harry and we don't see any duties. We just see the benefits of being born with a silver spoon in your mouth. And walking away from the royal family, walking away from all of your royal duties is one thing, but you've not really walked away from the celebrity of being in the royal family. To me, that's the benefit of being in the royal family. If anything, he's probably more poised to take advantage now, because I'm sure that when you're an acting member of the royal family, you can't be taking fucking £18 million payouts from corporate businesses. Whereas now, you know, he's one of the hottest names in terms of like celebrity that's able to be purchased, if you like, because that's fundamentally being purchased here, right? He's in a position to take more advantage. And I just have to say the same thing I'd always say, which is, why the fuck has this clown been given a platform for all this money? What is he bringing to the table? What is his real life experience? What can he talk about that is in some way different? What sense of reality can someone with that level of privilege really bring to society in terms of like conversation? I'm not interested in anything that the man has to say, because he just... I'm totally biased here. I'm talking out my ass, but he just doesn't have a fucking clue, does he? In real terms.
I think if you to ask him about, have you ever had to struggle? Have you ever had to survive on a very small amount of money for a long period of time? Then any point he had to make would be invaluable, unless he was completely honest in saying, no, that's something I've never had to do, right? Yeah. I don't think he's completely devoid of having any valid points. I don't think he's devoid of life experience. You need to remember he served active duty.
Yep.
How involved he was in truth versus the stories, I don't know, but almost everything I've seen of people who served with him or were in the same platoons or whatever said that he was just a regular squaddie.
Sure.
Credit where credit's due. I mean, I don't...
Easy to be that when, you know, you're not in war.
But I think he was in active combat zones.
Being in active combat zones and being on the front lines are very different things. And you know what I mean? There's still that privilege
you're still
there.
in danger.
We go to war, sending people out onto the field to die. The first thing that's going to happen is pull Harry out.
Potentially. I mean, I think, as an example, I wouldn't say that being in the Helmand province that you are so much more safer in a compound than you would be if you were going through the streets. There's still just as much chance of being attacked, just less chance of being attacked and actually being hit right away.
Sure.
But again, I don't know whether to believe it or not. I'm just trying to be unbiased, but a lot of accounts have said that he was a regular squaddie. Sure. There was no bluster round about him. There wasn't extra security guards, and there was no pull him away for this. It was, you're a number as well, and you're doing your duty. I don't think joining the army automatically makes you a hero. I think war is a stupid thing, especially in the name of money and taking over other countries, which is what we've been very, very guilty of in the last couple of times there's been any sort of skirmishes. But I think he would have some valid points on speaking from a person who has lived a life of privilege and been in the public eye, and how that would skew your own reality as well. And he's not had an easy life. He's had it easy financially, but he lost his mother at a young age.
Sure.
You know, there's a lot of shit happened to him.
Yeah, well, that's emotional turmoil. Of
course.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about financial. I know the point here is that he's been given a lot of money and he doesn't need it. Let's be stark and incredibly clear here. Neither of these people are short of money.
Yeah.
And neither of these people needed to be paid 9 million each, 18 million combination.
Yeah. Celebrating kindness and compassion. I mean, that £18 million could go a long way.
Could do one better, right? The whole point in this is meant to be promising to drive powerful conversations. There's plenty of other podcasts out there driving powerful conversations that don't take 18 million to get one episode up.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of them out there. A lot of guys out there that are relying on, like you, like Patreon, like us, t-shirt sales, and their own drive and want to talk about interesting subjects and engage with people and make a bit of content and put out into a world where you're constantly taking media back, like you're constantly ingesting other people's content. It's nice to put back in. At least that's my drive. Don't get me wrong, if Spotify said, Levi, Mike, we're going to give you 18 million, I would probably very happily be sitting here with a fucking Spotify hat and t-shirt on and being like, Spotify gave us a lot of money.
You know what? That is absolutely true. But also at the same time, if Spotify gave us £18 million, I can absolutely tell you I would not have £9 million in the bank right now.
Oh, no, of course not.
Because I would immediately, that's beyond any amount of money that I could ever possibly need. So I am going to help as many people as, help as many people as possible. Spend it all on a yacht. by buying all of the things I want and say, look, I spent the money on your business, I've helped you. No, I genuinely mean like, you know, helping my
Aye.
community and helping people
I think
I know.
if you or I ever fell into any sort of major money, it would be like, cool, all close friends, here, sort yourselves out. What do you need? Like,
Honestly, if I had £9 million in the bank, right, you would have a house. It's as simple as that. Like I just wouldn't. It's more than I need. So
we could do better.
here,
You
bought
and
your
I
house.
we could buy like a farm, right? Not traditional farm. I'm talking like old, beautiful sandstone buildings and whatever else, and we'll convert one part into a studio, the other part into a venue, one part into a recording place for doing the podcast, and then we'll have just a whole host of houses that people can stay in, and we'll have the Guitar Souls commune.
Ah, it sounds like you're going for like David Koresh cult levels of.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
no,
quite,
no, no.
That's Jim Jones.
No, we're not Jim Jones.
Yeah.
I was going to say we're not going down the Jones family. I'm kidding on.
What is it with me and cult leaders, right? I honestly, you say that though. I think if there was the option to do something like that, I'd be up for that, and I'd also want there to be someone in charge of it, not me,
Yes.
that could. I know it sounds crazy, right? But evidently, I just know how much I need in life, and I don't need more than that. So if I have it, I'm happy to give it away. I would love to set up something like that where people could literally come and record in it for free, using our engineers that were on salary, that were paid for, and all handled by the business manager that's taking care of things. And as long as that person can make enough money from the things that's being made to pay everyone's salaries and keep the project going, and I'd be fine with that, because again, accumulating that level of wealth is completely fucking unnecessary and greedy. So there's me sounding like I'm doing a Mike fuck the Tories.
No. Look, here's a perfect way to encapsulate the way I see it, right? Nobody is saying that you can't be rich. We encourage people being rich. We encourage people doing well, making a great life for themselves and others, and hopefully using that to then put that back into other people and building up and reaching down and pulling people up the ladder, right? What we don't agree, or what I certainly don't agree with, and what we don't need is billionaires. No one needs that amount of money. Yeah. No one. Levi said 7 million, which is what you could, or 9 million, sorry. You could win more than that in the lottery without blinking an eye. Sometimes their winnings are £100 million. Like, that's an unfathomable and almost unspendable amount of money, unless you basically go, what is something I don't need that costs way more than it actually is in value that I'm going to purchase just for the sake of getting rid of money, right?
Yeah.
Again, if you're rich, fine, fucking wire in, have all the stuff you want, but don't be hoarding wealth.
Sure.
Like, not to that degree. There is no reason for a billionaire to have £1 billion when people are starving, when there are areas of mass and great deprivation across the world. The fact that we can call something a first world and a third world country is an embarrassment in 2021.
Yeah.
It really is. It was an embarrassment in 2000. It's an embarrassment in the 90s. But the problem is that people are so focused on personal wealth and being selfish and seeing the results of a prosperous economy as being the only valid measure of success is a big problem. A really big problem. And that it also kind of gets to me that people who are rich that become altruistic or show altruistic traits are labelled as weirdos. Like Bill Gates is now the centre of a fucking conspiracy theory that he's trying to microchip everybody. No, motherfucker, this is a guy who made lots and lots of money and went, cool, how can I use that for good? Right, I'm going to put money into this research, or we'll put money into this technology. Both of my children are only getting £1 million each. I say only as if that's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
But when that man had accumulated probably about £1 billion, maybe more, and then just started doing the right thing, going, this is more money than I will ever need. Who needs the money? Where can I put it to good benefit? And how can I be altruistic? Not always. Obviously, the Bill Gates Foundation's got his name on it and stuff, right?
Sure.
But he's allowed to have a fucking legacy. Nobody's sitting here going, that Andrew fucking Carnegie, what a joke. Imagine getting all that money away and setting up all the public institutions and making sure that people had a really good quality life and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Doesn't happen.
Well,
fucking get a buy.
But Bill having his name on his foundation is beyond monetary value. Like, ultimately, earn all the money you want, but legacy is considerably more important.
Exactly. And I think Bill Gates' legacy isn't necessarily I done well with computers. It's how do we further ourselves as not a species, but like how do we bring mankind further? How do we do better for ourselves?
Yeah,
That's my mind of it.
take away the strange level of localization that we seem to have. If you live in a house with 4 people and you come into a lot of money, I don't think you'd really like more money than you could ever need. I don't think you'd ever question using that money to make your house better, for the benefit of you, but also the people that live in your house. Well, when you have that level of wealth, Bill Gates' level of wealth, the world, the earth is his house, and everybody in it is in the house. Just making it better for everybody in the house is not necessarily a bad thing. But we're going way too political, so I'm going to end the show by being super, super unbelievably political and talking Harry. Harry, I would be much more interested in listening to your podcast if you did an episode and just came out and said, look, guys, I'll be completely honest with you. I left the royal family because I'm very confident that my uncle is a paedophile. That's, I think, good news. I think that's the type of news that you should share. You should share good news. You should always be sharing great information. For example, did you know? This show has been brought to you by our friends over at Ormsby Guitars. If you have the time, please do head on over and follow them on Instagram to see more of their incredible work. I'm actually spending more and more of my time each day scrolling through Instagram and really getting the appeal of looking at incredible instruments like this. It just makes you want to order something really, really special. Of course, you can always contact them if you want to order a custom shop guitar, or head on over to their website, check out the pre-order section and get involved on the upcoming Goliath Run 14. Again, one of these guitars can be pre-ordered for as little as $1,200 US. That's an incredible price. That's a lot of guitar for very little money. So if you want something like this in your life, head on over to ormsbyguitars.com and get involved. Thanks so much to Ormsby, and we'll see you for another show soon. Laters. So as always, a massive thank you to our friends and family over at Ormsby Guitars. Those guys are absolutely rocking. Thank you to you guys for watching the show, listening to the show. If you are watching us live, thank you very much. Please do hit that like button. It is a big help. We have gone long this week. As usual, we can't help ourselves. Sometimes we like to get in conversations, but that is all down to you guys. You sent us some great fan mail, and we love reading it out. So send us some fan mail to GsolesFanMail@gmail.com. It's all very much appreciated. And yeah, as you can see on screen, please do buy a t-shirt as well. It is a great way of supporting the channel, and it is also very much appreciated. Mike, anything you'd like to add to that?
Just again, thanks for tuning in. Get to the Teespring down below. Make sure you support us if you can. Appreciate it. Thanks again to Perry and the guys. If you are watching live for the Monday Night Club, if it's not been brought up already, make sure you're getting your ideas in for what we can do for a live episode. Levi and I have spoke about it slightly. We're both very much open to what we're going to do for this live episode, but general gist of it, I think, is going to be Levi and I getting drunk on camera and progressively getting more aggressive about whatever topics you bring up. So if you're really, like, if the general listeners, the people that are always there in the Monday Night Guitar Geek Club, if you're really savvy, you could probably stack your questions in a really sensible way that start off getting us into the flow and building our trust up, like, like journalists do, the gotcha moments.
Yep.
And then just hit us with the big ones where we're just going to be like, fuck that guy, or whatever else.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll get to the end of the podcast, and someone will go, "Come on, guys, let's be completely honest. What do you really think of each other?" And we'll leave that as a nice tease for episode 100 coming in 3 weeks' time. Mike, until next time.
Fuck the Tories.
Oh, he's done it again. The thieving, cheeky bastard.